Hi everyone, it's your favorite Atomic Blonde here with a follow-up on the Stranger Things season 5. No shock to anybody, well, maybe a few, that there wasn't an episode 9. And yes, the Duffer Brothers really were that bad. But this is more around the behind the scenes, the making of season 5 that Netflix just dropped on the 12th of January. Oof, does that make things bad? You just basically saw two guys who just looked completely miserable, completely out of their depth, had no idea how to end this thing. And you can only believe that Netflix done this and dropped it thinking that they had everybody was going to love the finale. They'd done such a good job. What could possibly go wrong? And it just made the Duffer Brothers look so bad, really bad. Like we say, they had 3 years. So you could probably say 2 years and a year of post-production or something, but they at least had 2 years to come up with how they wanted to end it, to plot it through, make changes, etc. And we basically find out that they went into production without finishing the story. And boy, don't we know that always ends really well for other productions, a la Marvel, when they start filming films, when they haven't finished the script, they don't know what the ending's going to be. The moment they said that in the behind the scenes, I think there was just that you could almost hear it globally, that everybody just went, that's why it wasn't that good. Okay. That's why we have. And I think what made it even worse is that you had obviously the other two sort of co-writers in the room with the Duffer Brothers. The lady in that is the lady that actually wrote the stage play. And I'll be putting a review up shortly around The Fair Shadow. And yeah, that's interesting as well. But to sit there and go, look, there has to be something in the abyss, right? There has to be at least demi bats or something. And you just got the Duffer Brother kind of going, yeah, you're probably right, but it's all a bit hard, isn't it? If they've got to go up against demi-gorgons, demi-bats, and kill the Mind Flayer, it's all just a bit hard to write, isn't it? It's just what the hell? And as they go through, they keep talking about plot holes and just disregarding them and just people won't care or whatever. And I think the most egregious thing is that you kind of had Sean Levy and the Duffer Brothers all talking about, we've seen so many shows where people invested for years and they just don't nail the landing, and it's just it ruins the legacy of the show. And you're just yeah, it does. And they fell into exactly the same trap. It's just kind of mind-blowing, boggling how bad this behind the scenes show makes them look. They just look like rabbits in the headlights. They just look so out of their depth. Even though they sort of kept telling us that this was all mapped out, it was all kind of planned. And as I said in my review, look, it wasn't awful. It wasn't the worst finale I've ever seen. There was bits that I really liked. There was bits that were very entertaining. But like most of the fans, I can watch it and enjoy it, but I can also watch it and it drives me nuts because of all the plot holes, and hence why Conformity Gate came up to say, well, what about this? Why aren't there demigorgons, demi-bats, and demi-dogs in the abyss? What happened to Dr. Owens? Is he still handcuffed to a pipe somewhere? I mean, what the hell? Hawkins split apart, but you can just put, metal plates over it. Why is Hopper constantly trying to sneak in through the military entrance on the base to get into the Upside Down. If 11 can just lift the plates and they can just go in anywhere they like, why are you taking that risk? Why is the military completely oblivious to what these kids are doing? Why did the army just decide to up and leave at the end when they'd sort of seen that Will had these powers? Did they not want to test him and see if he still had these powers? Will his blood work the same as 11? Without any repercussions or consequences against anybody in Hawkins, and Hopper just got his job back, even though he'd been killing military left, right, and center. I mean, it just goes on and on, right? There was just some stuff that was just so like, don't know, why are we even bothering here? It's just people won't mind, and to make the decisions that no, it's that double-edged sword, as I said in my review. I think there were certain characters, if something had happened to them, people would have been really pissed, especially Dustin and Steve. If anything happened to, like, it was a bit like Supernatural, right? They either both need to die or they both need to survive, which Supernatural didn't do either. Don't even start me on that finale. But there was clearly characters that they could have got rid of and should have got rid of. As I said, like, Max should have died in season 4, but they could have easily got rid of her in season 5. And the whole thing about Max being in his mind, surely he could have just expelled her at any point out of his mind if he wanted to. He didn't. If he was afraid to go in the cave and deal with her, why didn't he just expel her out of his mind? I don't know. Please explain. If somebody knows, let me know in the comments. But a lot of this is just like, who knows? But yeah, I just really wanted to jump on and just say, as much as there were some lovely bits as well in the behind the scenes, when they're talking to the kids. I mean, obviously they're adults now, but and obviously some of the emotions and I find it really interesting, like the Duffer Brothers just kept deferring. I mean, like, these guys, like, have never directed before. They're kind of in their early 20s going, what do you think we should do? And it's great if you've got collaborative directors and they want to take ideas on board. I'm not knocking that at all. But you've literally got the actors almost directing their own scenes because they've kind of forgotten, what's happened so far. I mean, a good example of that is like Robin when they're in the laundry. And you got the demi-dogs coming and she's sort of saying, hey, I think I should whisper to her or be very subtle because obviously character Lucas and that doesn't know that I'm gay, so I can't be outwardly gay. And, and they're just going, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. And you're just like, oh, my goodness, what on earth, right? I mean, when they do, dissections of why other shows failed, it's normally because on the successful shows, there's someone in the production crew who has a canon Bible of all the sort of storylines and what the lore is and what the threads are, and so they can go back and check they're not, going against canon, or if they are going against canon, that they've now got a new reason to go against canon, and there's like a explanation for it. And the amount of shows that said, yeah, we didn't really track that, and yeah, we forgot about that. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, it's only 5 seasons. It's not even like it took 10 years to make, but it's not like you've got 10, 15 years of episodes like other shows. Like Stargate was like 10 years, Supernatural 15 years, and they pretty much managed to, not perfect, but they managed to keep most of their continuity going and canon going. You only had like 4 seasons, 8 to 9 episodes, and you couldn't keep track of what you'd written. It just blows my mind. So some people are saying the Duffer Brothers just didn't care and they were too busy having their eye on the prize of what was coming next. I didn't really get that vibe that they didn't care. I kind of got the vibe that they were just kind of exhausted and just a bit we just don't know. We've written ourselves into a corner and we're not good enough to write ourselves out of it. And I think they cared enough to try and give us a good enough finale that, like I say, it didn't completely shit the bed. But I don't really get the vibe they didn't care. I just think they just kind of just didn't know where to go. But the frustration is they weren't listening to the other writers in the room who were saying, well, look, we've got to do this or we've got to cover this. And they just sat there going, yeah, but, and even the whole conversation they have about whether to kill off 11 or not. Is she dead? Isn't she dead? Isn't that just going to annoy people? We've done, and just like, just make a bloody decision. Have some conviction in what you're writing, for crying out loud. And if I was like Paramount right now, I'd be like really questioning my decisions of letting go Taylor Sheridan, who churns out the seasons pretty much every year, a year and a bit. You know, pretty much got Landman a year, season 2 round. They're good quality shows, great characterizations. Not all of it's for me. I'm not a Yellowstone fan because I just really don't like the sort of cowboy type stuff. But Landman season 1 was brilliant. I haven't started Landman season 2 yet. Love like Tulsa King. But, you know, even if it's not the sort of thing I'd watch, you can see the quality in the writing. And they've basically let him go to pay the Duffer Brothers God knows what for one season of like one show that they haven't actually landed that well. You know, I think, you know, most people kind of gone, it wasn't horrendous, but this could have been like one of the greatest finales ever. And yeah, we just didn't get that. And I mean, what I will say is that, you know, with all this conformity gate and behind the scenes, we're all still talking about it, you know. But Netflix must have been like, what did we spend 400 million on? And yeah, Paramount must be like, Skydance must be like sitting there going, shit. And obviously Netflix aren't going with The Talisman, which is a Stephen King adaptation that the Duffer Brothers have been trying to get off the ground forever. So whether Paramount will make that now, who knows? But yeah, it's just really interesting. I'd highly recommend watching the behind the scenes. I mean, there is some good stuff in there, especially around, you know, more of the other crew, you know, and how they put the sets together. But all the way through, it's like, yeah, we don't have the script. We don't have this. We've only got X amount of days to shoot and we don't even know what we're shooting yet, you know. So all the way through, you could just, you know, you could feel the tension. You could just feel the stress of these guys just not being on their game, just not being on their shit. And it must have been a horrible place because everybody just looked kind of miserable, especially the Duffer Brothers, who done, you know, this great season 4 that, you know, and you're just expecting there to be like all out apocalypse war going on. And there was a whiteboard behind one of the brothers with these sort of ideas or what was going to happen. And there's loads of things that just didn't actually happen. And you can't say it can't because they didn't have the money. I think they just dragged their heels so much writing it, they probably just run out of time to shoot it, right? Or they did spend the money, but on the wrong things. I don't know. But at some point, somebody will do the autopsy. And but as we know, streaming Hollywood, they never learn any lessons anyway. So they'll still spaff away another 400 million on some rubbish. No doubt that wasn't rubbish, but you know, spaff a load of money on something that fans just go, what the hell was that? What did I just watch? You know, so in some ways it's, you know, it's tainted. It has tainted my enjoyment of season 5. Like I say, there was a lot I liked, but then just watching the behind the scenes and some of the dumb decisions they were making, you know, yeah, you just go, really? And the fact that in some ways it'd be like, you know, if they just generally forgot about something, that's annoying. But the fact they were discussing some of this stuff and then just disregarded it anyway, like the audience are just idiots, you know, that's what's really frustrating, I feel. And then you've obviously got some people who have zoomed in on the guys' laptops and they've got ChatGPT open and Reddit open. So were they using ChatGPT to write it? Probably. I mean, I don't think there's anyone in Hollywood or writers in Hollywood who, you know, they'll write their first drafts or whatever, and then they'll run it through ChatGPT or some other AI tool. Let's see, we've got to be naive to think that's not happening, especially if they're up against it. They hadn't finished their scripts, right? It's the quickest way to churn it out. And again, that's probably why some of the characters didn't feel as authentic as in previous seasons, or were sort of acting a bit sounding out of character if they're running it through ChatGPT. Don't know, but again, it doesn't really support the Duffer Brothers' talents. So I'd love to know what you think. Have you watched the behind the scenes? Do you think it makes it better or worse for the Duffer Brothers? And do we even care what we're going to get next from them after all this? Can they kind of restore their reputation? Who knows? But love to know your thoughts and say, look out. I'm not exactly sure. Hopefully I can record it in the next few days, and get up the review of the Stranger Things, the first Shadow. I have actually just found out, and I'll probably repeat some of the other one, but the Broadway show is slightly different to the West End show now. Because obviously the West End show has been up and running for a long time. To make changes now just doesn't work with how everything's sort of set up, and they've added an extra couple of bits into the Broadway one. So obviously I can only comment on the West End version, but I'll let you know what those slight changes are. I only found out the other day when I was watching some other channel saying that. I was like, in America obviously, and I was like, oh, okay. And I don't like the changes, I have to say, and it kind of doesn't really make a lot of sense, but you'll have to wait and see what all that means. So anyway, nil point for the Duffer Brothers, and I will see you again soon. You take care now. Bye-bye.